Hey everyone, Ken here, how you doing? Just thought I'd do a quick update. Um, Still not great with flukes. I think I was saying to you last time I treated with, don't have it here, what is it the name, but I can't think of it, Pro something, will come to me now in a second. Learnex Pro, treated, and the fish weren't looking great still. So what I decided to do after 6 days was do a second treatment, which cost me another £66. Um, so put that in. I'll go out to the fish in a second, but they're looking a bit better now. I did notice a couple of the goldfish. There was one had a tumour. He was looking very bad this morning. He was hovering around the top. I just made it the tough decision to euthanize him. I don't think he was going to get much better. The worry when you have a parasite infection or fluke like that, if you have a fish with a very low immune system, they can't shake it off and they just eventually reinfect the whole pond. So that was part of my reasoning. So anyway, hopefully that done the trick. Although having said that, I've been reading both here in Ireland and the UK of people who've done 2 treatments of Learnex Pro and not solved the problem. So hopefully I have. The reason I knew I hadn't solved it, by the way, is my largest fish, not even sure if he's a Japanese koi, but my original, I think he's a Jin Matsuba. He was just looking very ragged and wasn't himself and hanging around the back of the pond. So I took him out because he was very red and there's a few nicks on him, just to put a bit of inidine and sealer on, which was semi-successful. He looks a bit better. I'm half thinking about doing it again. But I scraped him when I had him out and I found another live fluke. It looked deformed now and there was only one from 4 scrapes from him. But nonetheless, there was a live fluke. You'd expect to learn next. I reckon in 5 days. What I'll do is, it's 5 days tomorrow, I'll stick my UV back on, or on for the first time. Peaking of UVs. So what I did was I have in here the tank connectors on there. You know, the thing that if you drill a hole you put it through. You can see there's a bracket here with a hole. The problem is when I put the UV down that far, which would be ideal, this little, I don't know what you call it, you can see the screw on thing with the wire going through, that goes underwater. Now correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone does that, I'd love to know. But as far as I'm aware, that isn't waterproof. It's water resistant. And if I submerge that, eventually I'll likely have a short and I'll trip the switch. That's if so I can screw it down. I have the yoke, it's down the bottom there. I need to fish it out. I dropped it down. So if I screw that into its place, into that hole, as it would be if there was a hole in the side of the filter, that little gubbins is underwater, which, you know, would obviously be sticking out here if it was on the side of the pond. The other idea I had was to drill a hole and put the UV just above where the 3 inlets are. I do flush, I think I mentioned this before. The only thing is, it's another hole. I have a hole here that I used for a trickle in, which I moved to the other side, and I also have a hole underneath. I put it in underneath the gully for waste gully, but it was frying the seal on the tank. I've showed you that multiple times. The seal is under there in pieces where it was near the UV. It just fried it. It is, you know, sort of not directly on the UV, but indirectly kind of on it. But anyway, that's, so if you have any comments on that. Otherwise it's just sort of having it half stuck in there with the that bit of whatever it is sticking up out of the water, and not submerged. It's a bad design, that jug. I don't think it has it on the Quenny Kois. I got this in Europe, so it does have it, but it's too low. It's about 1 inch too low. Anyway, that's it in here. I did test my trickle in the other day or yesterday, and it's still 0 chlorine. And by the way, for the first treatment of Learnex, I just want to turn the burgers. I will pause this for a second. Right, sorry guys, I'm double jobbing at burgers on the barbecue out here as well. Not very successfully. What was I going to say? Yeah, I tested the chlorinator. Sorry, I did bypass when I treated the first thing of larynx, and what I did was this little, there's kind of round lids and they're pressed in there and you take them out. I think I might have shown this on a video. The unfortunate thing was when I went to press one of them back in, that I guess had been up near the UV, it was brittle and it didn't shatter thankfully, but it cracked. I don't know if you can see there, but I did get a bit of silicone on it. And I'll get another one, quinicoid. I don't have them in stock at the moment, but they do have them. And I'll order when they do, but that one is working for the moment. They're obviously not UV safe, but when I did bypass the drum was manky. God almighty, if you've ever a question as to what your drum does, bypass it for a week. It just, now I've a vac, it wasn't the end of the world, I cleaned it up, but the bio chamber was full of crap, this was full of crap, there was crap everywhere, the pond looked like shit. So I just said to myself, I'm not going to do that anymore. I know some people do it for meds. What I can do is by trickling this 0.2 litres a minute and just calculate what the extra water is and dose for that over 5 days. That's all I've done. So I've overdosed, I think it was by about 7%, which is no harm. So listen, I'm going to leave it at that and look after the burgers, and then I'll join you when I've eaten said burgers, and we'll have a look at the fish. Talk to you in a sec. Okay, part 3. You can see I've taken the covers off. First of all, they are over at the garage there. I took them off yesterday and I got out the power washer and gave them a good power wash down, so I let them dry and I'll stick them in behind the garage tomorrow. You know, the fish are looking all right. I don't know if there's one of the goldfish hanging around, but they have been hanging around on top, a couple of them. Hopefully they come around. But there's still a little bit of flashing, but not much going on. So I'll just keep an eye on it. You know, I think that it does look as though the treatment is taking its toll on the goldfish. I don't know, probably 2 treatments of Larinax Pro. It possibly strips back the slime coat, and while the koi can take it, the goldfish maybe not, although it doesn't say it's not safe for goldfish. So it'll be sticking on the UV tomorrow probably, and I'll probably do a water change, and the window's filthy. You can see the sort of white chalky from the Larinax. No matter how you try it, still doesn't quite dissolve properly. There's a bit of a residue. There's one of the goldfish. He looks all right there, but there's a bit of hanging around the top. There's also this, surprisingly, what I have been doing, I might have said before, is even during the winter, what I do is the day before is fill this up, and then when I flush my bottom drains and back here, I use this to top it up. Now it just sort of dawned on me during the winter, there is stagnant water sitting there. I did get a fair bit of blanket weed. Now there is what do you call it, clover leaf thrown in there a couple of weeks ago just to kill it off, which as you can see it has, but it hasn't done the lilies any harm. They're blooming, and one of them has buds. There's other buds up here, so I'd say the nitrates are off the chart, but the lilies are loving it. So what I'll do is as well, possibly tomorrow, is well, what I might do first of all is stick in a bit of what am I thinking of, PP, and just clean out the lilies, because particularly reading about trichodemia, and I did have trichodemia. What's that there? Oh, it's one of those plastic yolks that's on the bottom of the don't know why it's stuck there. I have these little plastic yolks on the bottom of the covers. That's what that is. It's stuck on the wall. So I'm just going to PP a lot of this for an hour or so, just in case there's anything in it. And then I'll get out the power washer and give it a wash down. It looks really, it's just I think primarily it's a hardish water area, so I get a lot of, you know, that is black fiberglass, but I get a lot of calcification on it. That's kind of it. Another thing I noticed as well, and I was trying to figure out, I usually before, what I've been doing the last few times since I got the trick is when the pond drains down, I fill this up directly. So I stick in a bit of sodium thiosulfate. And what was happening was last week when I was doing a reading, particularly in the filter, usually when I'm in the shed, I just take a bit out of the filter just to make sure that the chlorine levels are okay and the potassium or sodium thiosulfate did its job. And in the filter I was getting an off the scale, not off the scale, but a very concerning reading, like 0.02 is the maximum for koi, and I was getting 0.3, which was very high. Then I came out and took it out of the pond, and it was at around 0.1 something. It was okay, or 0.01, sorry. So it was fine, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Is my HANA test kit acting up? Normally never had a problem, and then it dawned on me. I read about the HANA test kit. It is based on the DPD method, you know, the little tablets. And what they do is you crush one up and put it in a bit of water, and it gives you, it turns blue, and it lets you know if there's any chlorine. If you get any blue tint, you know you have chlorine. However, some people say that's a bit, you know, by the time you, with the naked eye, see the blue, you have a fair whack of chlorine at that stage. So the hanometer is able to read much smaller concentrations, so it's the blue tint in the water that wouldn't be visible to the naked eye. And I think what was happening was, because I FMG'd the pond twice over a few weeks, there was a very slight blue tint in the water again, but the hanometer was picking it up. So I was getting inaccurate chlorine readings. I did add a few fish, and I know I shouldn't have, but I did. I added a couple of skin ring shags. You can see one of them there. See how they grow out. And I also added a Akamatsuba. So this fella, I said before, I'd probably move on. I'll make sure I'm no problems before I don't give someone else problems. And I also got a little something my wife took a shine to, was this Tamasaba, and he settled in very nicely and is getting involved in the rush for the little bit of food I've been given. So he's a cute little guy, just something unusual, so I put him in there. I think he thinks he's the biggest fish in the pond, but as you can see, he's far from it. And that's it, so I'll leave it at that. If you have any thoughts on my UV and submerging that bit where the wire comes out, as I said, I think you can't, but if you have experience of doing that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to improvise. And what I'll do is water change tomorrow, stick the UV back on, and hopefully I'm past. My Jin Matsuba there he's looking better. He was hanging up in the corner here, and he was red. I took him out last week and put a bit of you can still see red on him. I put a bit of inodine on him and that, and he's come around. And I also did my little platinum ogon, because he had a sore. It's all very, you know, it's not the bloody flukes, it's the flashing from the flukes that does the damage. Gill flukes are different. I don't think I gill flukes, I think they were just skin flukes. But it's the flashing that causes the problems. So I'll leave it at that. Cheers, and I'll talk to you soon.